These are tax advantage investment accounts. You cannot just take fucking loans against them, or you cannot just withdraw from them for no reason. You have to be able to show hardship in order to do it. That's the whole point of these tax advantage accounts. Playing video games. What do you got for me, buddy?
Oh, I was just contending with your argument that AOC is economically illiterate.
Oh, I mean, she is, but we can talk about stock buybacks in particular if you want.
All right. So, what is your contention that she's just state for the stream, rather than wasting time for me like characterizing what you believe?
Oh, sure. So AOC throws around a lot of numbers and she acts like they're comparable or something, but in reality, they have really nothing to do with one another. It's kind of like when Trump talks about like, oh, we've got a big national
Not Trump.
debt.
Tell me what AOC says. I don't give a fuck what Trump says.
Okay, sure. So AOC in particular talked about how, what was it? Companies did $500 billion in stock buybacks, but didn't spend that much on R&D. Therefore, it's bad or something, or did more stock buybacks and R&D, so it's bad or something. And these two things don't really have much to do with one another. So I don't know. It's basically she just saw one number was big, one number was smaller, and she said therefore bad.
All right. So let's deal with this one by one. Would you agree that the same pool of money that's used for stock buybacks is also used for research and development?
Yeah.
So there's a cap on how much R&D can be spent, and there's a cap on how much stock buybacks can take place based on the cash that the corporation controls.
Yeah.
So you could, in fact, say that by spending on stock buybacks, you're not spending on R&D. That is actually logically consistent.
Kind of, but only if you don't really understand what's going on. So a company isn't going to just buy back stock or throw out money in dividends if there are positive investments that they can make into R&D, right? Even if we believe
that's an empirical assertion that you're making. What's your evidence?
The entire structure of how a company is set up.
Okay, this is great. Now we can find the rub of what you're not understanding from this point. AOC says that what's happened is prior to the Reagan administration, stock buybacks were not permitted.
And prior to that, for most of American history, they were. For a brief moment in like 30 or 40 years, we banned stock buybacks for some dumb reason.
The 30, 40 years that had the best wage growth, the lowest disparity between CEO and executive pay and worker pay, the fact that we had...
You mean, hold on, wait, please don't kish gallop me. You love to connect a lot of these things. I let you do this with the manufacturing point that was totally not true. Just stick to this one topic, okay? You do this thing where you have like... Yeah, I understand this was an unprecedented growth in American fucking history. It was also post-World War II where the entire fucking world was destroyed and America was the only industrialized nation left standing with intact infrastructure. There's a lot of reasons why America grew. To try to pin that all on stock buybacks is really, really not true. So let's focus on this one narrow issue of stock buybacks.
So you're saying for the 30 years the world was recovering from World War II? Is that
I'm saying that if the entire... Can we please focus on this one area?
Okay,
I promise this narrative doesn't work, okay? Just this one area.
But the point is, so in the New Deal era of broad-based growth, this was illegal.
Okay, I don't care though. That's not relevant, but go for it.
So you're saying that it's like some sort of necessity, but it's not. It was a rule change done in the Reagan administration, among many other rule changes that have led to greater inequality in our economy. Number one. Number two, so your assertion it was that she was wrong, but that's not the case. Okay, now I remember my point. My point was this. So here's what happens. Executive compensation has shifted away from direct wages to equity-based compensation, that is direct shares and stock option contracts that is given to executives to have them incentivize increases in the stock price. Mm-hmm. We agree with that, right? Away from just giving them $10 million check, you give them a $500,000 check and you give them $9 million in stock options.
Yeah.
And so what that incentivizes is the executives to increase the share price so that they can exercise their options and sell. And because now that creates an adverse interest in the company.
No, it doesn't. That actually, the whole no, please let me explain. Please let me explain, please, before you trigger the fuck out of me. Okay? The reason why this is done is not to create an adverse interest. This is to align the interest of the shareholders and the CEO. That is why this is done.
But it doesn't, and I'll explain why. Okay. So what it does is it incentivizes people to manipulate to time their sale of shares with the short-term stock price. So when you buy back stocks, that creates a short-term rise in the share price. And if you know when that share price is going to rise, you can structure your sale of your options or exercise of your options or sale of your securities during that spike. And so what it does is the company, as you rightly point out, why would they buy back shares if they have productive investments to make?
Well, they wouldn't.
They would if the interest of the person making the decision is different than the company. That's what I'm explaining.
Why would a board of directors allow a CEO to do that? Why would a board of directors just sit by?
I'm explaining it.
Okay.
I'm explaining it. The connected people, both in the boardroom and in the executive suite, can time their sale of shares based on this manipulation.
Wrong.
Absolutely.
You would
right.
get absolutely fucked by the SEC for trying to do.
Schedule it. All you have to do is schedule it. I'm going to sell shares. I'm going to sell shares 2 weeks from now. And by the way, we know this from studies, is that the difference between stock buybacks and dividends is stock buybacks are highly irregular, whereas dividends are usually long-term and they stay established for the most part. So a company is known as being a dividend-paying company, so people who want dividend income buy that stock. Whereas stock buybacks come from like short-term cash infusions, for example, that Trump tax cut. The vast majority of that Trump corporate tax cut went into stock buybacks. And
a lot of these points have literally nothing to do with one another. It's like, I feel like we're just regurgitating. Okay, what should a company do if it's sitting on a lot of money instead of doing a stock buyback?
They should invest in.
What if there are no projects to invest in?
Wait, is it your assertion that there's nothing productive to invest in pharmaceutical industry?
My assertion, so you can
need to be cured.
Okay, if you have somebody that studies econ in your chat or my chat, we can bring them in. But I'm gonna get too triggered during this conversation. Like, in order for me to buy, here's my argument. My argument is that the interests of the shareholders and the CEO are aligned through stock purchases. This is the whole reason why CEO compensation is done via stock options rather than through wage compensation, is to keep a CEO from pillaging a company, taking a big wage, and then leaving. That's why you give them options to incentivize them to care about the long-term growth of the company. If you disagree with that and you're saying, well, actually, in a highly conspiratory manner, you could set up to perfectly sell back your options at a time when you artificially somehow boost the share of a company and the SEC doesn't catch anybody doing this and all the shareholders are okay with it, I have to buy into so much conspiracy to believe in your world.
There's nothing conspiracy.
There is absolutely.
About this.
There is, but there absolutely is.
No, there isn't. And by the way, throwing conspiratorial on it, it's not an argument, my dude.
No, it's not, but it's a pretty simple Occam's razor where like it's pretty easy to see why stock buybacks are done. And it's pretty obvious.
Okay. Oh my God. Here's the thing, dude. Do you not agree that it could cause it? Okay, let me build my hypothetical and you'll see if it makes sense. If I have shares in a company and I have a pool of money that's not mine, say it's the company's money, and I could spend the company's money to raise the share price, and then I can sell the shares when it spikes, would I do that? Is that rational? Assume away all the legal...
Firstly, the options that a CEO has, they're not generally able to execute those immediately, right? It takes some time after they've left the company for them to be able to do it, firstly. Secondly, nothing that you just said couldn't be exactly applied to dividends. Let's say I'm sitting on $1 billion cash, right? Say I can buy 50% of my shares for $1 billion, so I doubled the price of all the existing shares. Well, what if I just paid out $1 billion in dividends? It's more or less the same thing, save for the fact how they're taxed. I mean, either way, you're returning money to shareholders.
A bunch of reasons that's not true. Again, when you buy back stock, it causes a rise in the price on the exchange. People who hold the shares for long term do not see a return until they sell. So stock buybacks only incentivize selling of the stock. If you maintain your investment, it's just paper gains. Those are not actually returning money
you just
to
described
investors. Every
single capital gain in the market are just paper gains until you sell. So what?
But the point is, you're saying it's the same thing, whereas it's not. A dividend actually puts money into their account.
All I'm saying is the difference is how they're taxed. Because
the difference is significant.
The difference is how they're taxed. Because dividends, if you have an investment account, oftentimes you immediately reinvest the dividends anyway. So it's not actually, like for anybody here that has an investment account.
You want.
Sure, for most of the people in chat that are listening that have investment accounts, a lot of the times you automatically just reinvest the dividend. So for more or less, it's the exact same, save for how it's taxed.
Okay, except for the part where if you decide what you do with your money is your decision. If you decide to spend that money on reinvesting, good for you. You could also take that money and hold it in cash.
And you could do the same with a stock buyback. If you want, you can sell some of your shares that have now appreciated.
Only if you sell your shares.
What's the difference between selling your shares and just getting your money as a dividend?
Because you own the company. If you sell your shares, you no longer have an interest in the company.
And if you get paid a dividend, you don't have that non-diluted interest in the company as well. It's the same thing, Mike.
It's not the same.
It is. If I could,
it's close to the same thing.
If I can
In
buy
one
back,
case,
if I
okay.
if I buy back my shares, if I buy back half my shares and you get twice the price, or if I pay you a dividend that's the exact same in cash and you take that dividend and you buy shares in the company to double the amount of shares you have, it's effectively the same thing.
But here's the thing: effectively is doing a lot of work. You could call it Atlas of that sentence.
No. Okay, let's say there are 10 shares of a company, okay? All of them are $1 each. There are 5 shareholders, or let's say that there are 10 outstanding shares in this company. There are 10 shares, okay? And let's say I have $10 in profit. I could buy back half the shares. So now if I own 1 share, okay, now I have $2.
Now, how many shareholders are there now?
5 shareholders, 10 shareholders. There are 10 shareholders, okay? 10 outstanding shares, 10 shareholders, okay? All in there $1 a pop, right?
And then you buy the shares.
I could buy half of them back
shareholders?
for $5. Now everybody's share price is just increased by $1, or I could just pay dividends out to those 10 shares, and now everybody's gotten $1 more, so they've gone from 1 to 2. In both cases, they're making the same amount of money. The difference is in how it's taxed.
The difference is, in one case, there's 10 shareholders and continues to be 10 shareholders, and their interest in the company continues due to the dividend, just paying the money. In the other case, the share buybacks, some of those people have to no longer become shareholders.
Wait, what do you say? Nobody has...
Where do you think share buybacks come from? It's stockholders selling the shares.
Selling! That's the key word, Mike, is selling. They don't have to do anything. If they choose to sell their shares, then they lose their shares. Of course, that's how the fucking capital market works. If you want to sell your share, you can do it. Nobody forces you to sell it.
But the point is, to buy back shares, somebody has to take you up on it.
Okay, that's what the whole fucking New York Stock Exchange and the London Stock Exchange and every fucking stock market is for. It's for buying and selling shares of companies.
How are you not understanding this? How are you not understanding this?
What am I not understanding?
The difference is tremendous. You have either in the dividend, everyone's still a shareholder. In the share buyback, some people had to sell their shares.
Sure, but who cares? What's the difference to do? Why does it matter? Why does one matter or one doesn't?
Because the only people who made money from the spike in the stock price are the people who actually sold in category B. Now they have a paper thing, for everyone has a paper gain, but it's not actually equalized. And we all know that stocks go up and down and change in price, and lowering the float is a way of, but people do not value shares purely on a PE basis. You understand that, right? Like,
there's a lot of shit that goes into valuing a share. There's a lot of speculation.
Right.
There's a lot of efficient market hypothesis. If we want to talk about how people value shares, sure. None of this is helping you, though. None of this has anything to do with what you're saying.
All this helps me. It all helps me. This is the thing that's crazy. Okay. Oh my god. This is wild. So you don't seem to understand the difference. Do you accept the material difference between the two?
Yes, but the difference is not. It's a difference. It's a distinction without. It's a difference, but it doesn't really matter that much. Like in all cases, all you're doing is returning money to people that are holding shares of your company.
No, you are not. You are returning money to people who sell the shares.
In order to sell a share, Mike, you have to own a share. So see my prior statement, you're returning money to shareholders in your company. In one hand, you buy the shares back and not force them to sell them because that's not how capital markets work. They choose to sell them back. In the other hand, you're paying them a cash dividend. In both cases, you are taking your profits and you're investing them in your shareholders. You're paying back shareholders for investing in your company.
Okay. So the material difference is, in the share buyback world, the people who get the money in their pocket are the people who sell the shares of the company.
Okay.
In the dividend world, the people who get the money are the people who own shares in the company.
Okay.
Do you see why incentivizing people to hold an interest in a company is better than incentivizing them to sell it?
Why? Wait, why?
Because you just said that it was good for the company to continue to have shareholders who have an interest.
I said it's good for the CEO and the board and the shareholders to have their interest aligned. I don't know if it's necessarily good for every single investor to infinitely hold on to their investments. That's a totally different conversation.
So here's the main reason why people are opposed to share buybacks as a way of returning share value to shareholders.
Okay.
It's because these share repurchase programs are usually short term. They benefit the subset of shareholders that sell. And by the way, those who time the selling of their shares when prices are inflated, they are the ones.
How are prices inflated? What does this mean? Time the selling of their shares when prices are inflated. Can you break that down for me?
Let's be basic. This is the way stocks are sold and bought. There is a buy book and a sell book. So
wait, no, wait. I don't need the basics. I want you to
Yes, you
explain.
do, apparently.
You're
I'm
using.
explaining.
Okay, let me explain what you're doing. When you say you're using these words like when the shares are inflated and they're trying to time the sales, like these are meaningless words. Everybody tries to time their sale. You sell at a specific time when you think the share price is the highest.
Okay, this is why the basics are important. So for everybody
Oh
in the
my
chat
God.
who isn't an investor, I'll explain it to you.
Okay.
So when you buy a stock, when you go to your brokerage account, there will be an order of people offering to sell the stock at certain prices. That's the sell. Then what you could do is you could put a bid in. If you don't like any of those prices in the sell book, you could put something in the order book. You can make a market order for a price. And you could say, I'm offering to buy the share at this price. And somebody who has that share could look at your order and decide to fill it. That's how one share is sold, or however many shares, is you put up a bid and somebody puts up a sale. So when you have stock buybacks the company comes into that market and says, I have $1 billion to buy shares back with. And it clears out all the people in that sell side. And all those, so the prices, they're basically like ads. So the price, it's sort of like going into saying, I'm going to buy all the Xbox Ones in eBay right now. And you start bidding on all the Xbox Ones. That's going to result in all the Xbox Ones currently being sold right now to go for a higher price. This is basic shit.
Okay, so you're right. It is basic. Let's get up paint. We're going to draw this out, okay? Ready?
I ain't drawing shit.
Okay, I'll draw for you. Turn on my
disagree
stream.
with?
Let's say that we have 10 shares, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay?
Do you disagree with that? Before you go into paint.
I don't disagree with what you said, but nothing of what you said is wrong or controversial or whatever, okay? So here we go, okay? Everybody has 10 shares.
Apparently it is.
Let's say that a company, okay, our company has made $10. Wow, we have $10 in profit. What could we do?
I got ads I have to watch.
Don't worry about it, okay? We have $10 in profit. Everybody has $1 of a share, okay? What we could do is we could pay each of these people, okay, $10, okay? So if we paid each of them $10, now they all have $2, okay? They've all gained plus $1, right? All of these guys have appreciated by $1. Or what we could do is we could do a stock buyback. We buy back their 5 shares for $1. So now they're down to $0 in equity in the company, but they've all gained $1 because they've been cashed out. And now these guys, all their shares appreciated to $2. So at the end of the day, if we return it via a stock buyback or we pay it out in dividends, everybody's gaining $1. The only difference is dividends are paid out immediately, and you have to pay taxes on them immediately. Now, it could be long-term dividends or qualified dividends or not, depending on how long you've held or whatever.
That's also good, by the way, for inequality.
Don't care. That's a totally separate conversation. If you want to talk about tax...
Everything... Wait, all this is related. You can't
It's absolutely not related, Mike.
Yes, it is. We're governing here. We're trying to
Holy
create
fucking
policies for the whole
lefty
country.
politics aides wants me to fucking kill myself. If you want to talk about...
Wait, you think we should silo everything into its own
I
little
think that
world
we
where
need to
draw
have a
paint
reasonable
pictures?
conversation about what different policies are supposed to achieve, okay? A firm's job is not supposed to be to manage the fucking tax rate. That's the job of the government. If you want to talk to me, if you want to talk to me, if you want to talk to me, if you want to talk to me about your issue with capital gains tax, I am all fucking ears. Because capital gains taxes, I think, should be brought in line with ordinary income. But don't sit here and tell me that a business should pay back dividends or stock buybacks based on what the tax schedule is. That's so fucking dumb. Those are two totally different conversations that don't tie into one another.
All I'm saying is,
no,
you're
let me finish with
making my
my
point.
No, I'm not. All I'm saying is that the difference between a buyback and a dividend is like on paper, one might be paid out immediately, one might be paid in the appreciation of a gain on your capital, but in all cases, every investor is basically earning the same amount of money. Profits are being returned to shareholders. Whether you do it via a buyback or a dividend doesn't really... What?
Share sellers.
No. To be a share seller, you have to be a shareholder. Do you understand? You don't just invent the... You have to be a shareholder to be a share seller. So when I buy a stock from a shareholder, I am returning money to a shareholder, even though he became a share seller, right? Yes. So in these cases, if you're making money or profit, if you return it via a dividend or if you buy back stock, you are returning capital to shareholders that invested in your company.
So let's back up and give the 30,000-foot view of what we're talking about. AOC, a government official, is suggesting that we should eliminate the possibility of companies using share buybacks to return value to their shareholders, and instead only permit dividends. Now, you argued to me that it's the same thing from the perspective of the shareholders. Now I argue that they're different.
What you just said is not what AOC said. She said that money should be paid out in profits to the workers.
That's another element, and we can get into that too.
That's what she said.
That too. But
if you want to come at me and say that we should only pay back in dividends because of the tax schedule or whatever, I would say change the taxes.
That's what we're arguing for. We're arguing that you get rid of this. There's a myriad of reasons.
That is not what we're arguing for. We're arguing that stock buybacks are bad.
That's what I'm arguing right now. I'm explaining to you why it's bad. Now, you said it was a tax advantage thing for the people who maintain their shares, who the value has appreciated due to the stock buyback, which I agree, and they don't have to pay any taxes on that increased value. That's absolutely true. Whereas in a dividend payment, they would. So if you believe
that's not even necessarily true if it's a qualified dividend. So that's not even 100% true. But even if it was true, when these people sell their capital, eventually they will pay taxes on it. But again, if you want to talk about
Why would they sell? Why would they sell?
Because when I go to pay for my end,
now we're getting into the shit that I know a lot about.
Oh, now we're getting okay. Wow. Okay, you can tell me if I'm wrong. So when I go to Walmart, or if I want to buy a house, or if I need to pay for healthcare, I didn't know that I could just give them shares of Amazon. I thought I had to liquidate it and use a currency that is recognized and received as taxable.
You don't have to liquidate. You can borrow against the value.
Okay,
you don't pay any taxes on borrowing. So right there, you're just wrong. Like if I own $1 billion, do you think? Wait a minute.
Why would I borrow against the value of my investment? Can you even do this?
Because you don't have to pay any taxes on it. That's why. If you borrow against the value of your shares, you never have to pay taxes.
Somebody in chat has to tell me, bro. I'm not going to take his word for it. Somebody in chat, do you borrow against the value of? I know that you can take out a loan, for instance, against your 401k or like a Roth IRA, but those you have to be able to show hardship to do that. You can't just do that willy-nilly.
Yes, you can.
No,
of course you can.
No, you can't. These are tax advantage investment accounts. You cannot just take fucking loans against them, or you cannot just withdraw from them for no reason. You have to be able to show hardship in order to do it. That's the whole point of these tax advantage accounts.
Destiny, you're arguing against a position I don't have. I'm saying you can borrow against. Now, if you have a 401k, you're a fucking middle-class person.
If you have a 401k, you can take out a borrow against it. You can take out a loan against it. But guess what? Your assets don't grow when you have that loan out against it. It's horrible. I'm sorry. If you guys are listening, because I don't know if you get shit financial advice here, please do not take out loans against your 401k. It is one of the worst decisions you can make, okay?
No shit. I'm not advocating for that. I'm saying that if you are rich, if you're Jeff Bezos, does you think he liquidates his shares to buy shit?
Yes. He needs liquid cash because that's how we purchase things in the United States. You use currency to do it. You don't trade shares of Amazon.
You borrow against the value of your shares.
Why
you don't think he's gonna get? You don't think?
Wait, hold on, Mike. I don't know this, so you can educate me. Can you please explain to me? I have a Vanguard account. How can I take out a loan against the value of my shares? What is the process for that?
All right. I mean, basically, you can contact your bank. Seriously.
And I'm gonna take out a secured loan against my investments?
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Because I don't want to pay interest with cash that I already fucking have. Why the fuck would I pay interest when I have money in an investment? Why would I take out a loan from the bank and use my own investments to secure that loan and then pay interest to the bank when I could just liquidate my own fucking shares, Mike? Why the fuck would this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Because you don't have to pay taxes when you take a loan, but if you liquidated stuff that you have a capital gain in, you'll have to pay taxes. That's why. And then you reduce the value of your ownership stake in whatever your underlying asset is. If you sell shares, you own less of that company, so your control of that company decreases. Then you have a taxable.
Most people don't have like a controlling.
Let me fucking finish. Or you borrow
Mike,
money.
Stop molding. I want to play more games.
Hold on, give me like 5 more minutes. I'm sorry.
All right,
Come play Minecraft.
Just like we're almost done. Go.
Okay, so. I can't believe you don't know that rich people take loans against their...
I don't think any rich person does this.
What? It's called secure transactions. It's like one of the most fundamental parts of our economy.
Okay. So you're telling me that people just take loans out against their investment accounts? Not to mention... Wait, I don't even know what this has to do with stock buybacks at this point.
Well, you interrupted me in the middle. I explained how it's better that dividends are paid because it's usually a taxable event. Not always, but usually.
Okay.
So for inequality purposes, it decreases inequality when dividends are paid versus stock buybacks, which because...
Maybe very, very, very slightly. Maybe.
And then secondly, we talked about timing, the adverse interest of executives versus the company they represent, being interested in spiking short-term share prices via buybacks, as opposed to investing in other things that the company might do with the same money.
Shareholders are not going to let you just buy back stock if there are other good projects to invest in, because then every single shareholder would be losing money.
Wait. Do you think there's total transparency between the shareholders and the executives? Do you think they know everything?
To a large extent, yes, of course.
No, there is not.
Shareholders can literally fire the execs. What do you mean?
A board fires the execs after they're elected by shareholders. Shareholders primarily being the largest, like usually in a few hands. This is like, okay, so what you're doing is you're talking about an idealized form of capitalism. I'm talking about how it actually operates in the real world.
How it actually operates is if you have an exec that is eluding the company to do some weird shit and there are good projects to invest money in.
Did you not see what okay, first of all, companies get looted all the time. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why people like to pay CEOs with stocks, so that it disincentivizes the CEO from destroying the company. It's to align the interest of the CEO and the board. That's the whole reason why they get paid in
stocks. Do you understand the difference between a short-term stock price increase and the long-term interest of the company? Can be misaligned?
It can be. This is why CEOs' pay is often tied to stock options that they can't exercise until several years after they leave the company, to disincentivize the pillaging of a company, to short-term drive the price up, pillage it,
they have golden parachutes. They get paid when they get fired. It happens all the time.
That was the big... Holy shit, that non sequitur came by me so fast I couldn't even see it. What does getting a golden parachute have to do with the fact that they still have lots of their pay tied to stock options?
Well, first of all, the fact that they get all their compensation structured in stock options supports my point that they're incentivized to spike the share price over the long-term interest of the company. When you say,
okay, you're using the progressive econ terms. You say spike the share price. That could mean adding value to the company. You realize that, right? So, for instance, if I acquire another company and it was a really good acquisition and our company's going to be way better and everything's more profitable, that's quote-unquote spiking the share price. I don't know what you mean when you say spike the share price.
Okay, so when the company does a return of equity of money to the shareholders, that is devaluing, that's lowering the cash available in the balance sheet.
Okay.
Now, the share prices go up, but as far as the balance sheet of the company, they're worse off.
Okay, but you don't want to...
No. By the way, the only way they could get that money back is if they were to issue more shares again.
I don't understand why would you want a company to just sit on hundreds of millions of dollars?
That's what Apple did.
Okay.
It became one of the largest companies in the world. They held on to their cash.
So your argument this is great. So your argument is that you think that all companies shouldn't return any money to investors and they should just sit on mountains of cash and the corporations should just keep all the fucking money and not pay it out to anybody. That's what you think should happen.
No, what I'm saying is that there is adverse interest in stock buybacks, that dividends are better, stock buybacks used to be considered manipulation of an underlying stock.
And before that, they weren't. I don't know why you keep going back this dumb history argument.
You mean in 1929 when we had the Great Crash? That's when it was okay. Let's go back to right before we had the fucking Great Depression. Good plan. How'd that work out for 2008?
The fact that you think that stock buybacks were the reason for the recovery is the most hilariously dumb thing I've ever heard in my life.
I never said that. Why are you creating?
Well, because you're going back to saying like, oh, well, actually, we grew after the Great Depression, like that. So there you go. Like,
oh, dude, I never said that.
Did you know that the internet is bad for stock markets because of the .com boom and the 2000? Like, this argument is nothing. You're drawing these narratives where they don't exist. Like, yeah, the American economy grew like crazy after World War II. It wasn't because we banned stock buybacks.
By the way, chat, everybody who's watching this, he hasn't made one actual argument in favor of prefacing stock buybacks over dividends. No one's saying that you can't have profits in a company. No one's saying that this was the sole cause.
I've already made the argument is that they have a more preferential tax rate. So that's probably why you do a stock buyback over a dividend. Sure.
So largely the point still remains. Like,
no, it doesn't. There is no point.
Wait. Oh God.
You
have failed to acknowledge even the part where I say that if you had knowledge of an incoming share purchase, you could structure your sales during that spike in the price.
You could also get ultra fucked by the SEC because this is called insider trading, Mike.
You could structure it. I'm going to sell. Yes, you can. Oh my God. Do you know how it works? Do you know how?
I guess I don't, Mike. In reality,
how do they sell their shares?
I don't know, Mike. They schedule to sell them at a certain date, and right before that date, they just totally do some crazy shit with the company.
God, they can't be that blatant.
And the
Jesus
SEC doesn't see any of it all. The shareholders don't know what's going on. Everybody is totally blindsided by all of these crazy exercises on these stock contracts, and no one has any idea what's going on. It's just this crazy thing. Nobody understands it. But for some reason, even though the companies that post the largest stock buybacks seem to be doing positive in the long term after they happen, I don't know how it happens when all these companies are being looted and destroyed, and stock buybacks are supposedly horrible, but somehow,
you're rating straw mans for stuff I didn't say.
I'm not even sure. I mean, if your argument is going to be, well, actually, there's a whole bunch of insider trading going on, it's just no one knows it. We're at conspiracy levels now. I don't know how to argue at that point.
It's not a conspiracy.
Can you point to a single instance of this happening in the real world where somebody like a CEO fucked over a company super hard and spiked the stock price and then cashed out and then walked away and burned everything down and everybody was cool with it and it wasn't like some insider trading shit? Has this ever actually happened?
Are you asking me about looting or are you asking about... First of all, I never said that happened. I said that you advantage structured selling timed to the spike of the stock price coordinated with stock buybacks. This is a well-established point. I mean, we could talk about this more if you want. As far as looting,
I would love to see a story of this happening where somebody destroyed a fucking company or did some crazy shit with the company right before like a scheduled thing and the SEC didn't get mad at all. I would love to see an example of that. I'm super curious.
I mean, like Valiant. Like, look at Valiant. Like,
okay, Valiant. The company? Valiant. What do you want me to...
Stick to what I'm arguing instead of like saying, this X thing is some dumbest shit I've ever heard when I didn't even say.
Because you're saying this is central to your argument. You're telling me that stock buybacks are bad because they incentivize exactly this type of behavior that I don't think even happens in the real world. So if it incentivizes it and stock buybacks happen, then we should see it happening somewhere.
Of course. Do you want studies? I mean...
I don't know. Well, the only studies that I'm familiar with are studies that show that the companies that engaged in the most stock buyback activity tend to be profitable in the long term. Those are the only ones that I'm familiar with. But I'm curious if there's examples of people like destroying companies because they're spiking the stock prices right before like a timed sell or something.
This is... first of all, that is just begging the question. The
companies no, it's not begging the question.
The companies that have money are the ones that can buy back their shares. Like, that doesn't mean shit. So here's what you're not understanding, is that we are operating in an economy that has multiple moving parts and elements. Stock buybacks are part of the they accelerate inequality, and they create a tax advantage for returning value to shareholders. Yeah. And it also gives executives incentives to focus on short-term
Short-term is not established. It's just not true.
Okay.
Because companies that engage in stock buybacks tend to have the best long-term growth. So that is just blatantly false. It's just not true.
That's selection bias.
I'm selecting for what we're talking about.
Because the companies that buy back stocks and that fail go away, and only the ones that survive are the ones that continue.
And nobody accounts for that when they look into whether or not stock buybacks are good or bad. Everybody just missed that. Like, oh shit, those companies went out of business. We missed that.
You're just saying shit without any reference to data.
I mean, we can go. Wait, if you want, listen. After this game, we can go and look up studies. Okay, sure. Stock. Okay.
All right, hold on. Let me pull up the myriad pieces of data. Fuck.
Stock buybacks, good or bad for companies.
This is your champion.
Fuck, I should have saved. I need to save my sources for arguing with lefties. Hold on, I'm in the middle of the game. You can do research and bring me what you find, okay?
You can bring me what you find. I'll find.
You've made stronger claims than me in this conversation, matey. You said that companies are being looted for people to do stock buyback. I'm not moving any goalposts. This was the original thing you came on to argue about. You said that CEOs are incentivized to destroy companies because of stock buybacks. That was your original point.
I never said that. That's not what I said. I said that they are incentivized for short-term stock gains over long-term investments.
Short-term stock gains over long-term investments sound to me like destroying companies. That's
not the same thing. That's a whole nother step.
Okay.
That's a whole other step.
Okay. I don't know. Well, that's what I hear. When someone says we did a short-term thing and we fucked our long-term, sounds to me like what you're doing is destroying a company. But hey, that's just what I hear. I don't know.
All right.
Mike, you need to be a bit quiet when we're playing.
Yeah, don't trigger Canute, okay?
Oh, Canute, good luck, buddy. Good luck. I'm sure you guys can win. It's a really powerful squad that you got.
Thanks.
Okay, God, poor Canute. Like, dude, I'm sorry, I wouldn't inflict this on you normally, dude.
No,
But you know,
it's not good for the gameplay.
It's not.
of course.
Where are we at? Over here, guys. I heard violence.
I wonder what put stock buybacks up your ass as something that you've got to defend.
It's just because everything AOC says is just like literally with economic illiteracy. It's just really annoying.
Everything she says?
More or less, yeah. I don't think she has like a basic understanding.
Holy shit. I mean, she does have an economics degree from Boston University.
Yeah, I know. It's shocking. I don't know how. It's crazy.
Wait. Do you think that everybody with that studies this is for stock buybacks?
Yeah, generally, I don't think most people have. There are a couple things that people are against in terms of like business shit, but stock buybacks are not one of them. Or at least that's not what I found in my reading.
Read more. That's all I can say.
Maybe if the guy's like sources start with like Das Capital or some shit, maybe they're opposed to it. But most people, Roosevelt Institute is super fucking.
Sure.
So most of the economic shit that I read basically says that like the reason why you want stock buybacks to happen is because you don't want companies to sit on a fuck ton of capital. That investors will be less incentivized to spend money on a company if that money is not going to be returned to them ultimately when the company is profitable. That's why you typically want to do stock buybacks. You don't want a company sitting on a fuck ton of cash and doing nothing with it. It's a really disadvantageous way to have money work in an economy. You want that money returned to shareholders so they can either invest in other projects or give it to other companies or keep it for themselves and spend it or whatever.
I mean, that's you just contradicted stuff you said earlier.
What did I just contradict?
When investors get a return, they reinvest immediately. So they buy more shares.
Some people do, some people don't. I didn't say that they had to.
That was
I just
my
said that
point.
it's better to.
That was my point. Now you're shifting to my point. All right, sorry guys, I don't want to debate. I'll be quiet.
Nothing that I just said was shifting anything. What I said.
You can't win against a stubborn man like Steven anyways.
I'm gonna fucking kill you, Canute. I dare you to come to Twitch in a video game. I'm gonna kill you in a video game.
You can say it outside of video games, Steven. I'm fine with it.
You don't want a company sitting on a ton of cash. This is the same argument that I've used the entire time. You don't want a company to just have a fuck ton of cash and do nothing with it.
For example, a pharmaceutical company could invest in research and development on drugs, unless you believe we're at the optimal rate of research and development expending right now.
Here's what I can believe. Either A, a company is doing stock buybacks as some greedy, insidious way to do some shit, and all of the shareholders are too stupid to see that the company could be investing money.
Why are you putting all sorts of normative words and
because my way just makes sense. A company doesn't have any positive investments that it can make, so it returns the money to shareholders because it doesn't need the cash. Makes perfect sense. It totally makes sense with how people invest in companies, and it makes sense with how companies are ran. It makes sense with what you would do with the company personally if you had one. Everything makes sense. In your world, companies have really positive projects that they can invest in, but for some reason they don't spend the money on it. They just return it to greedy shareholders because the shareholders don't want to make more money, I have no idea how that works.
Okay, so this is honestly, dude, you really believe that these companies have no possible investments they could make?
I'm sorry, do you think that pharmaceuticals constantly have places that they can just throw infinite money to and they can always be investing money all the time for do you believe that? Can you just say that? Wait, can you answer that yes or no? Because that's essentially what you're saying.
I'm saying that there are more
oh my god, there's two up here. There's
diseases. Okay, hold on. I'll let you go.
One behind you. This guy's really lit. He's chasing. Oh, shit.
Oh.
You were close. Okay, let's do 2-minute wrap up, okay? So that we're done.
All right, okay.
Go.
You can talk to him as long as you want.
Okay.
Shut up when there's enemies.
Canute. By the way, Central Committee on Twitch.
Yep, go. Okay, we get it. Okay, go.
Hit the follow button. Hit the follow button and keep watching Destiny.
Mods.
By the way, okay, see, here's the problem with this discussion. You came in committed to a viewpoint that stock buybacks were good, and that AOC was economically illiterate, which is totally an
AOC is economically illiterate because she said that the money spent on stock buybacks should be spent on labor, which is a dumb fucking statement to make that shows you have no fucking idea how anything in economics works. That's why I said AOC is a fucking idiot. Because she is.
Because you don't understand how wages are set, which, again, that's fine.
No, that's because I already said that you don't go to capital markets to raise money to pay your fucking workers. Nobody goes and doesn't...
You don't have to go to capital markets. That's already in the company's balance sheet.
Yes, the company's balance sheet that it gets via investments from capital investors. When somebody invests in...
No.
Okay.
That's not where they get
okay.
the
Yeah.
cash.
This is
The
like
cash is from their-
some Marxist shit. I don't know how to like. You're coming
It's
from a
not
totally different
Marxist
paradigm.
shit.
It is.
I'll
If
show
you
you-
run
I'll
a
explain
company
it.
and you're making a fuck ton of money and other people invested in you, you have a fiduciary responsibility to return profits to those people. It's literally part of like fucking capital law. You can't just throw all the money away at your employees and be like, oh, sorry for investing me.
Oh,
Literally,
no, of
everybody's gonna
course.
bail from your fucking company. Nobody's gonna invest in you if they don't get any returns on their
Of course the
investments.
laws are ridiculous. That's
The laws are
point, is that
okay.
we're trying to argue in favor of things like, Canute, if he's European, he knows that they have a much higher union share of labor, so that people can strike and they.
So
can
then talk
use-
about unions. This is my problem with you guys, is you always point to things that have nothing to fucking do with your arguments. If you want to talk to me about, hey, Destiny, we should have way stronger unions in the US, I agree with you. Then you should. If you want to raise wages, increase the minimum wage, that would be good. Give strength to unions, that would be good. Even shit like a fucking federal jobs guarantee, which I think is garbage, would be better than this weird idea where you think that companies are just going to return profits to employees that don't have any ownership in the company. It doesn't make any sense.
Oh, no one's saying that. That's why
AOC said that.
It's a rhetorical point.
It's
That
not
instead of
rhetorical.
raising
It shows a fundamental misunderstanding of how capital markets work.
But here's the thing. So here's the problem. You weren't aware of the debate that was going on. Is that Trump was going around saying we're going to cut corporate taxes and that'll result in wages increasing.
Which is dumb as fuck. Which is the dumbest thing in the world.
And everybody was like, no, it's not. It'll just result in people buying back shares and spiking their share prices and returning money to the richest.
If you're
people in our
expecting me to
society.
defend trickle-down economics, that's not going to happen. Because trickle-down
Well,
economics is dumb as
so
fuck.
here's the
And
thing.
Republicans are dumb as fuck. But just because Republicans are dumb as fuck doesn't mean you have to be dumb as fuck too, Mike. You can rise above.
First of all, it's not dumb as fuck.
It is
The
dumb as
point
fuck
is-
to expect a company to return profits to its workers. Do you agree with that or do you disagree with that? Do you think companies should return profits to their workers?
Of course, we should get as much money to our workers as possible.
No.
because
Can you just
inequality
answer
is
that
bad.
question so I know fundamentally if we're ever going to agree on this? Do you think that a
Okay.
company should return profits to its workers?
Should is a worthless word.
Okay, so
Should is a fucking
you won't
worthless
even
word.
answer. Fuck me, dude. Nobody that I
I
talk
am
to,
answering.
nobody that I talk to will ever answer
I am
questions.
answering.
And then
Let me
afterwards,
finish the
they
fucking
run to
point.
Twitter and they go, "Oh, he gives me all these insane hypotheticals. Ask me more questions if you want. I'll answer any question you fucking throw at me." Okay? I hate that you can't even answer that really basic
I am
question. It's such
answering.
an easy question. Should a company return profits to its workers? I will tell you the answer. The answer is no. You do not have an
Dude.
obligation as a company to return profits to your workers. You have an obligation
You
to pay
said
wages.
should, not do you have an obligation to.
Oh, wait.
You said should.
Hold on, wait.
Which, by the way, be a little bit more precise with your words.
I'm being very precise.
No, you're not. Because should is a value
Load
judgment.
him up,
Should I do it?
one,
Is it the
two,
right thing to do?
three,
Yes, it
boy.
is. Do you have the legal obligation to? No, of course not. Will the company do it? No, of course not. Because they, as you rightly point out, have a fiduciary duty to their shareholders. and they
shot
have
me
no
through the
duty to
door.
their workers. They have no duty to their workers.
Hold on, Canute is working right now. Are you sure you don't want me to just finish this, Canute? I don't want you to fucking explode.
No, it's nice. I think it's fun. I'm just farming pepper laughs in it.
Okay, if you don't care, all right.
Okay, so you asked me, should the company do it? Well, it depends on what you're talking about. Do you mean the legal responsibility? They have no legal responsibility to their workers outside of whatever.
Okay,
was negotiated.
under any understanding of your word of the word should a company return? What definition would you like to choose?
Instead of saying should, I would say, is there a legal obligation for companies to return money to their?
Okay, we both agree that's a no.
The answer is no.
Okay, what other should would you say there's a yes to?
The yes is, ought our society be structured so that profits go to the workers at a higher rate than it is currently? The answer is yes.
Then it sounds to me like your problem is with dramatic structural changes, nothing to do with stock buybacks or dividends.
Stock buybacks, and don't throw in dividends, because I didn't say, this was nothing about dividends.
Oh wait, so you'd be really happy if all this money went into dividends instead?
No,
No, you wouldn't. Then why are you pretending like there's
But
a
it
difference?
it would be preferable
Why?
for structural reasons. Because
All the money would still be going to the investors and not the workers.
No, it wouldn't.
Yes,
That's
it-
whatever the long-term capital gains tax rate, the dividend tax rate would kick in for most dividends, and that would return to the government. and
First
that
of
would allow
all,
redistribution.
Qualified
Redistribution of wealth.
qualified dividends, okay, are taxed the same as capital tax rates. So that's not even necessarily
Yes,
true. Okay?
yes, that's good. Tax it. That's what
No,
I'm saying is
that's
that
not good. Qualified dividends being taxed at capital gains rates is not good because capital gains are taxed at like fucking 15% up to like $500,000 or some shit.
Oh no, I'm with you 100%. We should tax labor and capital gain at the same rate. Sounds like you love AOC, because every single time we talk about a policy, you support the policy that we're talking about.
Because we probably align on most policies, but the thing is, I think you can get to these policies without being fucking stupid when it comes to fundamental economic thought. For instance, capital markets aren't for raising your worker wages. Like, that's not a very complicated thing. Should people be getting more money? Yes. Should unions be stronger? Yes. Are we going to do that by telling companies, hey, take the money that you raised on Wall Street and pay to your workers? No.
Dude, there is no... Okay, the capital markets are not being engaged here, except to discharge profits from the company. The company already has the money. If there was a strike, for example, and the employees, while that cash is on the balance sheet, and the employees said, we're not going back to work unless you raise our wage, and the company was faced with ongoing losses due to the fact that nobody's doing any work or pay the guys a raise, then they would sit down with the union and they would negotiate a raise. So more of the profits would be returned to the workers because they've negotiated a better deal.
Okay.
Or
now you're talking about making unions stronger. Like, if you want to do that, sure. I don't disagree with that.
But that's part of a whole program. Like,
that has nothing to do with saying stock buybacks are bad.
Okay, it's part of a larger platform that's connected.
No, it's not connected at all, because even if this happens, you could still have stock buybacks, and they would be perfectly okay.
Why would we? We would want them. And the reason why is because they're a tax advantage. So
if unions went on strike and they demanded all the profits from the company, everybody would sell their shares and the company would go bankrupt and they would just walk away. Nobody.
Wait, what did you just say? Say that again.
If the workers demanded that all of the profits were going towards wages, then everybody that invested in that company would sell their shares and they'd walk the fuck away and the company would go bankrupt and nobody would do anything with them. Like,
oh God, this is. I don't know why are you obsessed with it? So if we ban stock buybacks, do you think that would be a significant impingement of the liberty interest?
I don't think banning stock buybacks would do much at all. You just see more paid out of dividends, which would still have almost all the exact same inequality problems you have here, except some dividends might be taxed at a more preferential rate. But for the most part, inequality would still continue to grow. Profits from companies, from capital, which has way more power than labor today, in today's society, capital's way more productive or has way more power than labor. All of the money that goes into owning capital will still be returned to capital owners, and it'll just be taxed at a slightly higher rate. So it doesn't really help
That's why we can't do just one thing. We have to do a myriad of things.
Okay.
And like, this is the problem. It's like you had this strong take that AOC was economically illiterate.
Because she is.
But there are plenty of well-credentialed economists.
No, there aren't.
And think tanks like the Roosevelt Institute. Are you telling me the Roosevelt Institute is like some far-left commie group? Or that say that this is part of a financialization of corporations that is shifting them away from making money through.
Sure. So after this, I would be super curious if you could find me like an actual like economic think tank or some economist that says that like, oh yeah, when companies make massive profits, that money should be going back to the workers instead of to the investors.
Okay, so you want someone to argue that we should have a greater labor share of profit over capital share. Because that's real fucking easy, my dude. That's like the easiest fucking thing you've ever asked.
I can't. I wish. I love you. And we have the same, like, I think we even have the same goals, but like, I don't know how to do this.
What are you confused about?
You don't understand basic economic theory. We have the same outcomes, but you think that like, you can just like say things are good or bad or evil or whatever, and the econ theory behind it doesn't matter. That everybody should just get paid more money because people are good or some dumb random shit or stuff's not connected. I don't understand, Mike. If we want to get work, here's what I'm going to say, okay? If we want to get workers more money, here's the first big thing you can do. Get a bigger minimum wage. Studies have been shown empirically over and over again that increasing the minimum wage does not dramatically impact unemployment except for small groups of people. So number one is increase minimum wage. Here's number two. Here's number two. Okay? Fucking crack the fuck down on these companies that are like threatening people for unionizing. Okay? In my opinion, these are the two largest things you can do if you want to start seeing a higher return of capital investment or a higher return of profits in a company that are actually going towards increasing their costs of paying labor. Those are the two big things you can do. This weird moral appeal to like companies should pay their profits to that is what you're making when you're saying like, oh well, I'm not saying should in a legal sense, I'm saying should, but that's literally the definition of a moral appeal. Okay, you're saying they should like as a greater return or blah 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 blah. If you want these things to happen, don't talk about stock buybacks, talk about increasing the minimum wage. Stock
buybacks are one mechanism by which inequality is increased.
But it's a symptom, it's not a cause. It's a symptom of the fact that
one of the tools that we use to increase inequality is to to tax advantage. You had said that it was tax advantaged.
You're really
people don't
focusing
sell
on
their
that when
shirt.
it means fucking nothing. I pay more
It
in income
actually
tax
does.
than every poor person in the United States, but I'm still way better off for it. The fact that I pay more taxes doesn't fucking mean anything.
The fact that you have a progressive income tax means that your inequality is reduced relative.
My
to
inequality, I pay more in taxes than most Americans make in a year, and it still
Of
doesn't help
course.
anything for inequality, Mike. I'm still living a better
it
life than
does, 'cause you have
95%.
more
Okay, well then fine, then I love that.
you
Then
have more
amen,
money.
dude. Yeah, then let's just talk about that shit. Fucking more progressive taxes. Yeah, fuck people, dude. I'll bring home 250K and pay 50K or 60 or 70K in taxes. Fine, fuck them, dude. Amen, brother. I like that system. Okay, like I don't know what you want to. I don't know.
You're not. See, here's the thing. You're not arguing against me. You seem to think you are, but you aren't. Is progressive taxes reduce inequality? They don't-
Are you trying to get in? Oh, come
Let me in.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's out there.
Alright.
I'm trying to shield. Nice, one down. Wait, I got your thing. We're gonna get you, Canute. Okay.
Guys, I'm watching it.
Another one, another one, another one.
I don't have my shotgun out. I had my havoc out. I'm sorry. I thought I switched.
Oh no! And I was quiet too.
Yeah, kinda.
Okay.
No, you
now
weren't,
you can
but
focus.
okay.
2 minutes.
I need 3
Who's the one who
RP.
dragged me in here?
I need
He's
3
the one who
RP
dragged
for
me in
gold
here.
3. Okay.
Who's the one that asked to be in here?
No, I didn't.
What do
No,
you
I
think is
fucking
What do
didn't.
you think is easier, Mike? Do you think it's easier to boost minimum wage, to change the tax code, or to
Why
ban
do you
stock
have these
buybacks?
false dichotomies where you have to pick one of three? That's not how politics works, my dude.
Okay,
get
if you
confused
ban
and
stock
do more than
buybacks
one
and you make
thing.
it so people pay back things in dividends, and most of those are qualified anyway, which means they're taxed at a capital gains rate. What have you done for income inequality?
All right, so if I have raised the minimum wage, I have banned stock buybacks, I have created sectoral unionism, which requires a nationwide unions to exist that allows workers to negotiate against companies and from a much stronger position. Yeah, all of that's going to reduce inequality. We have a very high an estate tax. That's part of a unified program.
Okay,
my dude.
I agree. All right, I love you. Okay.
I don't even. I don't even know how
80% of those
talk
policies
to
you
this
talked about were great, and all of them can exist right alongside stock buybacks. So higher estate tax, I'm all for that. Changing the way that capital gains and qualified dividends are taxed, I'm all for that. Higher minimum wage, I'm all for that. Stock buybacks, or they're probably fine. No problem with returning income to investors. Absolutely no problem with that whatsoever.
All right, in the chat, I'm gonna link some studies.
Okay.
Go ahead and read some of the Roosevelt Institute. Now, it's Roosevelt, so it's not, he's a pretty left-wing president we had.
Okay.
So hopefully you guys can read that. Read some of the stuff. Sorry for interrupting the gaming, guys. I would be triggered as fuck if I were you, honestly.
All right. Okay. I love you, buddy.
I like hearing you
love-
screaming to each other.
It was very good content, honestly.
Real quick, just because I just glancing through this, corporate dividend practices are not without problems, and a wholesale shift
just
from buybacks
exit
to
the
dividend
game?
payments would not solve the problem of low investment and innovation in today's high-cost pharmaceutical industry. So just glancing through this, it already sounds like
By the way, I never said that it would.
Then why you?
Steven, give me jump master.
I am Jump Master.
Okay.
I'm not giving it up. Wait, Eman, did your game crash?
I think I exited it without realizing.
Okay. All right. I love you, Mike. We'll talk about it later.
I
Okay.
love you, buddy.
Okay. Be careful. Okay. I love
Bye,
you.
Mike.
Just hey, Canute. Sorry, buddy.
We should nominate. Hey, the TBP advocated for an ISDS panel where each person could nominate two, like a judge, and then we'd agree on a third one. We should bring on 3 economists when they come in to sit on these talks. Okay, it would make both of us much happier, or at least one of us. The other person would be very mad, but I'm all in favor of that.
I think you would have a little bit more of a problem than you think you would.
I absolutely wouldn't, because I confer with the PhD econs in my audience all the time to make sure I don't say some real dumb shit. So hey, if you've got different people, bring them in, and I'd love to hear
Who
them
are
hash it
you
out.
talking to? Stephen Moore or whatever the fuck?
No,
his
just people
name
that
is?
study economics. People that there's a German. Oh my God, what is there a guy down there? There's a fucking. Oh, that wasn't even Canute. Sorry. We have our German PhD econ guy, and then there's a couple people that I talk to in my emails. Make sure I don't say some real dumb shit. But if you got
No,
people that are
let's-
educated,
let's-
I'd love to bring them in and talk with them as well. All right.
Let the German PhD guy should message me, and we can talk about this. That'd be really really interesting. I want to read his thesis too. Does he have an English translation?
I don't know, but I'll try to message him sometime. Sure.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Have fun. Okay. Bye.
See you, bud.
Damn.
Okay, how about this? Have you heard about the 30,000 men, women, and children who are being held against their will in state-run detention centers in Vietnam?